Hello, everybody. Welcome to the JQK Law Firm live show every Tuesday, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, where we take your questions about U.S. immigration law, general education, not intended as individual legal guidance, to help just get you a better idea of what's actually going on in this wild immigration system. And one thing that's happening is every day Trump is back. Every 12 hours, things change. There's a lot of rumors, especially on social media, things are happening. A lot of them are wrong, but some of the worst ones are right. And so it's causing a lot of confusion, even in the immigration lawyer community. We hear things, we don't know what's right, what's wrong. But it's just the nature of the beast that we're dealing with right now. Some of these issues always existed. They just want to get reported on, like things at the border, for example. People get caught up and stuff. Those are things that are always been the case, but they wouldn't get reported. But now, because of extra sensitivity or hearing about it, the vast majority of people can come on tourist visas still with no problem. Almost everybody, almost every green card holder will be able to come. So the stories that I've heard, very rarely are they cases where there was like no issues, they let them in. There's fake ones that say that. But it's not to say that that won't happen after this recording. But as of now, inevitably it comes out that people had certain issues with their case, either criminal history or other issues that caused it to happen. But you never know. Things are changing up, and so you kind of have to make a decision. Some stuff I can't really advise on. It's kind of like give it a risk if you want. There was supposed to be a travel ban notice coming probably like last Friday. Nothing happened since. So everyone's kind of stalled. It's not good for business in the U.S. And for people traveling and the like. But that's what we're dealing with right now. So let's jump to questions. Adonis says, is it different for the duration of a marriage visa if you had a passport of Canada as Iranian passport and compare with a person with just Iranian passport? Uh, it, uh, it can be. So if you're Iranian, let's just say, not Canadian, you're just Iranian Canadian. If you're dealing with the embassy process, there's more likelihood that you're going to get stuck in what's called administrative processing, which means that the embassy is going to have more delays before they make a decision on your case. If you're in the United States, not much. Maybe a couple months extra on the adjustment right now. Maybe in the future that'll change. Also, it depends on if it's a man or a woman. So if it's a man, they may get additional administrative processing. If they had Iranian passport, they may have had to do mandatory military service. So that comes into play, questions about that and extra delays related to that, Adonis. So it really depends on the case and where you're at or how it's working, who you are. There's a lot of different factors, but inevitably it's up to the government how they want to treat that individual case, do it differently than other times or not. We never know. Z asks, hi, can you be deported if you're naturalized, you're citizen? So you're saying, can you be deported if you're a citizen but naturalized? It is possible. It's called denaturalization. If they find that you had issues with your green card or with naturalization that were not caught, but they find that out later, they could denaturalize you and put your removal proceedings to be deported. Most very rarely would that happen, but let's say you had like criminal history, you had been to prison, you didn't tell anybody when you got the green card and citizenship, and they didn't notice it, but they find out later, then yeah, they go back and do that. One case, there was a guy who lied about doing crimes and wasn't caught, but he was caught after becoming a citizen. So they reopened the case because there's a question on Form F-400 naturalization to get citizenship, and that's have you committed any crime that you haven't been caught for? Essentially, that's what it says, paraphrasing it. And so he had been done a crime he hadn't been caught for, but he was caught after getting citizenship. So that was a reason for them to be able to reopen his citizenship and deport him. Deservedly so. It's very heinous. I don't want to go into details. It's very, very depressing, but that guy was a complete jerk. Stephanie asks, can you apply for citizenship if you didn't file tax for 5 years since you didn't have income? So you have to ask an accountant. If an accountant writes up that you were not required to file income taxes, then it's fine. That's fine. But if you were supposed to file taxes and you didn't, that's where the issues come out. Bailey asked, do you think it's safe to travel here for 30 days with an ESTA from Australia? So, I don't know anything about you personally, so I can't advise what's safe for you or not. But as of now, everything's just like it's been travel-wise. Other lawyers are making different determinations and say different things. But for the average person, like, 90+%, 95%, 98% of people that are traveling the United States back and forth, it's still the same game. Now, if you are intending to come and adjust status, if you had criminal history, if you lied somewhere, if you're coming to work off, there's the same stuff that's always a problem. There's still a problem. So that's really it. Nature and Adventure says, what if one letter spelled wrong in my wife's name on a document that's already been submitted? Well, it depends on which document it is and why it was spelled incorrectly. If it was like a bank statement, who cares? But if it was like her birth certificate and her passport don't match and the misspelling is really heavy, then something. So you got to figure out, we got to see what document it is, why it happened, how it could be fixed, how it could be explained. That's not the place to do it here, but that's the general picture of it. TikToker says, are interviews happening for I-751s? I haven't gotten an I-751 interview in years, but it's possible. Bailey says, my husband is from Australia and needs to be here within that 30-day window for an appointment for me so I can do my taxes. ITS get him an ITIN. I mean, he doesn't have to be here to get an ITIN, but if you're a U.S. person and he's coming, that could potentially be a problem in your case. That's something you have to be mindful for. So they'll think he's coming here to apply for a green card. Patel says, hi, why is the NBC call my petitioner, but me missed 2 times? Hi, why NBC call my petitioner, but we missed 2 times? I'm not sure what you mean by that, Patel. I got to clarify your question. Ampa says, how long does it take to get a green card to deliver to your house? Why is the process if you don't get in 90 days? So there's how long does it take? I've seen it take, most of the time it's a month, sometimes 2 months. I've seen it take a year, and I've seen it be lost, and they blamed it on you saying they delivered it, but you lost it. If you have questions, feel free to shoot out your questions. Habitech says, I love you, America. Thank you for the hearts, the badge. Elnos asks, we're in the process of getting a green card. It might take longer than expected or even canceled altogether. Elnos asking the former question. I'm not sure if you're just making a statement or a question. Habit says, what is asylum applicant without work authorization for pending asylum when I apply for EAD? What is an asylum applicant without work authorization for pending asylum when I apply for it? I'm not sure what your question is. I'm sorry, I might be misreading it. Asylum green cards got processed. There's rumors, and potentially it's true, that people who have asylum and have applied for a green card based on that refugee asylees and have a green card case pending, that their case are on pause, pending review. That's some rumor that came. I'm not sure if it's true or not, but that may be true. Samantha says, hello, sir. Permanent resident here with an old DUI misdemeanor happened 8 years ago. Is that deportable? I have to see what happened in the court chart, so I can't tell you if that's deportable or not. Probably not. But they might have to get citizenship, a good moral character. But DUI typically is not, but we got to see the actual court record, police report, all that kind of stuff to see what happens. Nature is spelled wrong on the I-130 form. So if you spell something wrong on the I-130 form, you can notify the government and say there was an error. That's not a big deal. Nature and Adventures, thank you for the badges. World's Myth, thank you for the gift badges. And Samantha G, you got a lot of badges coming. I'm not sure what happens with these badges, but I appreciate them. What are the chances of I-751 denied for legit case on the current administration? That's not a question that's possible to answer. What are the chances of an I-751 getting denied, even if it's legit under the current administration? That doesn't mean, that question doesn't mean anything. Like, just have a good case. It's impossible for me to answer something like that. Yellow says, I'm an Iranian, applied for TD in administrative processing. So TN visas are visas, work visas, and the spouse gets a TD. Administrative processing forms, and CBI listed PhD as electrical computer engineering instead of electrical. My master was computer. Should I email them? It probably doesn't matter. Administrative processing is pretty typical for those cases. If you want to clarify, do it. I don't know. I can't recommend someone do something like, working with the government to do something, Yalda, because I'm not your attorney and I haven't reviewed your transcripts, your records, and who you're sending it to and what specifically you're saying. So I can't advise on that, but probably doesn't matter. But that's that. Now it says, online account says my case being processed in 4 months estimation since 405 lines is accurate. None of the online information that they have on your my.uscis page, which says like estimated time or interview weight, none of that's reliable. Sierra says, hi, can you visit your home country after you became U.S. citizen through asylum? I'm now a U.S. citizen. I could only formally give the legal recommendation is that you not visit your home country or use the protections of your home country, which includes their passports. In practice, everyone does it, and it's never been an issue, but we have the Trump administration now, so I'm not sure if they're going to deal with that differently. Historically, no, I've never heard anything happening, and they don't care, but, we have a different administration now. Samantha says, hello, sir, I'm per resident. We already answered your question, Samantha. Luchman says, green card under marriage since December 2023. Attended interview, got an RFE by USCIS page, still says attended interview, and it's not updated. When I call, it says processing. Should I use a standard to expedite? You give it a shot. I mean, I'm not sure what issues your case has. So they don't always update the page, so that's not like unheard of. But if you have like a weak case or issues, asking to expedite or calling senator and stuff might work against you. So, but I haven't reviewed your case. Zane Kalim says, hope you're doing well, John. Thank you, Zane. I appreciate it. Good to see you. Portia says, can my in-laws visit Canada with green card? They're afraid that they cannot come back to the U.S., fear-mongering. I don't know anything about your in-laws, so I can't say what they can and can't do. And especially about visiting Canada. It's not. I don't do Canadian immigration. Bailey says, the Irish told me he needs to be here at the appointment in person to get him an I-10 thoughts. That wasn't the case before. It's a matter of paperwork. When you file your taxes, you could conclude like his passport or something like that. But ask an accountant. They would know better what the current laws are. Hopeful says, can I use a P.O. box to receive mail from USCIS? I wouldn't do that, but I've had colleagues say they've had success, but I don't know the exact rules on that because either we just get at our office or the client gets at their home. Yeah, there's some lawyers who use PO boxes for mail. It's been okay, but from what I recall, they said don't do that. But I don't know a citation or source to give you like exact information that's true or not. But I would prefer not to. So says K1 visa. Okay, what's your question? Jasmine says I'm a permanent resident for over 30 years. I was planning to go to DR. Should I travel? I don't know, Jasmine. It probably doesn't matter, but I don't know anything about you to be able to tell you what you should or shouldn't do. Layla says, applied I-130 for my husband. Now his case is in NBC. It's not about how long will it take his interview. Probably like 2 years. Hopefully it'll be a year or 9 months, but it could be 2 years. Dexter says, one of my pictures of my I-130, I put wrong date of when it was taken. Only one. Will it be an issue? Probably not. I got to see what evidence you have. You can always send clarification if you want, but probably not, but I can't say for sure. Arso says, our sponsor case is stopped now. Our sponsor case is stopped. I'm not sure what sponsor cases are. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Sue says, K1 visa, no military service. Iranian 7th month AP, passport still, US embassy can be denied. Yeah, anything's possible, unfortunately. Hopeful says, can I use a PO box or answer that? Premsy says, will LPR applying for naturalization be a problem traveling? Generally, no, as long as you're not outside for extended periods of time. But whether it's a problem for your case, I can't say. Sue says, German resident. Okay. Unfortunately, it's just up to them. Boomby says, I was born here in the U.S. I'm over 22. I filed for my mom. She has overstayed. Well, if she entered the U.S. lawfully, then she could adjust status. If she didn't, it's a problem because if she overstays, she's subject to a 3 or 10-year bar. If she leaves the U.S. for an embassy appointment and she's not able to get a waiver, a 6-1 waiver or a 6-1A waiver based on a childless U.S. citizen. Yala says, I forgot to mention 1 year of unemployment in my work history in Iran and my TD application. Is it a big deal to have a gap in work history? It's not a big deal to have a gap in work history. You just got to tell them that it's there. So like, you got to have like proper information, whatever they ask, you got to answer properly. Lukman says, is this live recorded? Yes. I was born here. Okay. I Love You America says, attorney, my mom's father is American, but she's born outside the country and never been here. Okay. I don't know your question. TikTok, what is current estimated timeline for N400? 3 months to 2 years. Teo says, I'm a 10-year green card holder with a closed DUI record. Should I have issue re-entry in the U.S.? Maybe. I don't know what's the close. It doesn't matter if you're closed or not. U.S. immigration doesn't follow that. Haven't seen your conviction record, court record. And, it's up to the embassy, up to the CBP if they want to ask you about it. Probably it's okay, but it could come up. They could take a second room and question you. But I haven't reviewed your court record, so I can't even begin to answer that question. Triple says, hi, my wife is currently living with me in PA. We did K1 and got married. We didn't file for green card. Oh, what's stopping you? I Love America. You had to ask a question. Attorney, I Love America. Is she American? My mother's father is American, but she's born outside the country and never been here. So if she's a U.S. citizen or not depends on if her father, who is a U.S. citizen, was living in the United States long enough. And it depends on what year they are because the laws on this change every 20 years or so. So it depends on when your mother was born and what physical presence your father had in the United States. And if he was married to your grandmother or not, that could create hiccups too. So we got to do a lot of research and investigation and see what evidence we have before we can answer that question. And then inevitably it's up to the government whether they want to be, how they want to interpret it. Suru says, thanks so much, brother. You're welcome. Z says, could it be an issue for some Afghanis who come to the U.S. when the government has fall? Yeah, there could be issues, I guess. Elham says, I submitted my medical 5 months ago for I-485. I didn't get approval. How long will it take? There's no timeline. It could take longer. Valley says, is it possible to do AOS, adjustment of status, on ESTA to USC spouse already in the country? It is possible, and that's the reason why CBP doesn't want people to enter with ESTA if they're married to a U.S. citizen. But people do it all the time. But you can't come. I'm only advice I give is you're not allowed to come with the intent to file for adjustment of status. If you're here and then you change your mind, that's historically been okay, and there's court case on that. But there's risks involved, especially at the airport. Malik says, I filed the I-61 and I-485 together. Would they be adjudicated separately together? Probably adjudicate together, but they could inevitably the 6-1 has to be approved first before approve the I-485. So your case might stall, or they might do an interview, but still wait for the 6-1 to be approved. So inevitably, the 6-1 has to be approved first before they get approved the I-485. Ramal says, can a U.S. consulate deny your K1 visa due to annotation? Identity has not been established on passport. Yeah, I mean, they could deny for a lot of reasons. I never seen that annotation on a passport, so I can't really advise on that one in particular, but they have a lot of leeway denying K1 cases. Nasty says, I sponsor my mom and dad. They got their approval. They're still in Afghanistan. Any suggestions? I don't know your case. I'll just continue finishing up your case. Arctic Champ asks, what are the things one should write in an affidavit of good moral character for a naturalization application? There's no requirement for an affidavit of good moral character. Now, if you have like bad moral character reasons, I don't know, have criminal history or other issues, then you should have something that describes your good moral character. But that really depends on individually what's going on in your life. It's not a generic statement I give. That's worthless if we do like that. Triple said, did a K1. My wife is in the U.S. now. We got married, but didn't apply for a green card. Okay, just file for a green card. They actually submit 30 photos, letters, marriage certificate. Okay. Patel says, sorry, sir, I can't understand. We have submitted all documents. Now they accept, but they still not coming conform documents. They called the embassy, mom, but she missed. Now what can I do? There's no calling the National Visa Center. Their phone number stopped working. You have to use their system, but they should describe what the reason is. Now, the embassy kind of like some officers just don't accept documents. They don't explain why, or they say the wrong thing. So I don't know. I have to get deep into your case and investigate what's going on. Patel, let's get an attorney to help you with that and see what could be done. Yellow says, if a U.S. consulate rejects a non-immigrant visa, can I ask for reprocessing the application by submitting extra documents, or need to file a new application? File a new application. Unless it's like a ridiculous thing where you can try to follow up with them or go to LegalNet. It depends on what the reason is, but typically you have to file a new one. But it depends on what the reason is and how you could challenge it or if it's challengeable. Shaheen says, 30-year green card holder, my card is going to be expired. Should I apply for citizenship? That's Matila says, how much time for receipt notice received? It's been a month. They receive the package with no response. Usually it's a week or rarely it'll take a couple months, but usually within a week right now is the average time that we get a receipt. Raj says, I got my green card after my wife got citizen. When can I apply for citizenship? If your wife's a citizen, 3 years after you get your green card and she's a citizen. Malik says, receive RFE for 864 and 693. So that means the I-61 is approved? Not necessarily. Those are different forms that have to be reviewed. Triple says, okay, keep repeating your statement. Ramallah, answer your question. Getting a lot of repeat questions right now. Masi says, I sponsor mom. They want me to choose another country for interview. Okay, then do that. Whatever's comfortable for them to go for interview. What is the processing time for a Ciudad Juarez for IVP I-140? I don't know. It's up to, they do the things differently. Sepida says, hi, I've been outside the U.S. 11 months in December 2022. In order to apply for citizenship, can you apply 4 years and 6 months instead of 5 years? I read that. Yeah, you could do that. I mean, it'll probably be okay 4 years and 6 months, but, the government can be annoying about it, but probably that'll work. Aaron says, my husband had 4 catch and release from 2000 before he entered list effective an NBC appointment. You got to get the records to see if it was proper catch and release and there was no expedited removal or something like that. So that could affect it, but you want to make sure it's catch and release. So what you should do is do a fingerprints and send in for OBIM FOIA request, Freedom of Information Act request, maybe a CBP FOIA request as well. Bali says, thank you for answering everyone's questions. You're giving a lot of people peace of mind. Thank you. Welcome, Bali. I appreciate it. Bailey, I appreciate it. How long is I-751 taking nowadays? 2 to 3 years. Arab Rome, my husband had, we are answered that question. Z says, thank you, you're welcome. And NJ90 guy says, if Cuba stays on the ban list, will K1 still be allowed? We have to see what the actual ban is. There's no a ban list as published, just news reports, which are not reliable. Aaron, answer your question already. Simpla says, is it safe to travel to U.S. under ESTA, have return ticket holder? It's pretty much the same as it's always been. If you're coming to visit, people are visiting all the time. Airports are still busy. You're welcome, NJ, New Jersey 908 guy. All right, that was a fast 18 minutes of nonstop questions. So I'm immigration lawyer John Kasrabi. I forgot to say, if you're interested in a marriage or fiance visa case, we have a really detailed guide called the Ultimate Marriage Green Card Guide. It's 80 plus pages of guidance on the marriage and fiance visa process. You could download it at marriageimmigrationlaw.com. That's marriageimmigrationlaw.com. And if you want to schedule a private video consultation, fees do apply, but go to our website or contact us page. It's jqqlaw.com/contact. That's jqqlaw.com/contact, and fill out the box there. So you can see what kind of issue you have, and we'll reply with guidance on a schedule time if it's the kind of case that we handle. Ahmed asks, do you see an increase in NIW I-485 interviews? Not yet, but there's increases in revocations and stuff. Does applying for citizenship speed up the pending I-751? Yes, that's why most I-751 cases we have, because they're married to U.S. citizens, the applicant could file for citizenship faster. We filed a citizenship case, and either the I-751 gets approved before the naturalization interview or at the same time. KV Spartan says, have a Roth IRA and put my wife as 100% beneficiary. Is it good proof? Yeah, it's not bad for evidence of marriage relationship. That's one thing to do. It just depends on your life and what you could do that works for you guys. All right, we got 10 more minutes of questions. I'm immigration lawyer John Kasravi. You take your questions live, general educational questions about U.S. immigration. I know a lot's changing with the Trump administration. It's been a wild time, and we're doing our best to kind of give some active information, what's going on, what's not. There are a lot of unknowns. There are claims of this happening, that happening. There's a lot of people making stuff up online. Some true, but most of it is false. And that's the unfortunate situation that we're going through, and it's just going to get worse probably. But you know, that's U.S. immigration. Lily asks, "Hi, John. Is the interview process for marriage-based green cards for spouse abroad in Greece the same under Trump administration? Are the pictures good to bring? Any tips?" Yeah, it's the same as it's always been. There's been no changes in that sense. Yeah, you could have updated pictures. The bigger focus of the embassy interview is about the applicant's background. So updated financial documents for the affiliate support, new tax returns, W-2s, pay stubs. Any updates on the form DS-260 that has information about where you live or things that are happening, and updated documents if needed, like bring your originals, like your passport, marriage certificates, and the like, birth certificates. Any updates, for example, if it's been a while since you got the original police certificate, getting new ones. So that's the big focus of it. Now, with our cases, when we start the case, we overwhelm the government with evidence of a relationship. So for the interview, we don't really, my clients, I don't tell them to bring much evidence of relationship because it's like overwhelming amount we send them. But with some lawyers only send the bare minimum, and some people send the bare minimum. So if that's the case, yeah, you want to update. Pictures are good to bring, but if you visited to see each other, travels, so you have trips together, in addition to photos. If you have joint financial accounts, whatever you can do to add. But typically for us, we haven't needed to do that. It's more focused on the applicant's background paperwork and the financial documents. Y'all ask, if I send an explanation email to the consulate while my application is in administrative processing, do they apply that explanation to my application? Hopefully. It's just some person gets it, and hopefully they look at the email, hopefully it transfers. It's really unofficial like that. Bam Bam says, 1 year ago, I responded to a notice of intent to revoke. I want now to upload translation marriage certificate to my US account. Should I do so? My case under review. Thanks. I can't tell you what to do with something like that. I haven't read your case. I don't know what issues exist. So I can't come here out of the online and just say, hey, do this with your case. That wouldn't be like professional for me to do something like that. You're welcome, Lillian. Are they accepting new are accepting new clients apply for citizenship? If you're asking if we're accepting clients, yeah, if it's a good case, we have a consultation first, see what's going on, and the government's still accepting citizenship too. Can your green card get revoked? Yes, it's possible. How much evidence should be sent for I-751? Everything that you got. Laura says, since the day you came PR president. Okay. How much evidence should be sent? Okay. Hello, just me. Yes. Hello. Groupery said, asylum green card holder applying for home country passport. I don't recommend it because the law says you shouldn't do that. They don't have enforced the law for the last 25 years that I know of. But, that's up to you if you want to do that. I don't recommend it. Ahmed says, enter with AP of advanced parole. Is getting unemployment benefits from employer insurance through state affect my I-5 or I-485? No, insurance benefits are something you paid into. It's not like a government benefit that the government's just giving you money. You worked and you get paid for it. So that's not something that affects anything. Malik says, how long will USCIS respond after receiving RFE response? There's no fixed time for the response. It could be a day. It could be years. Jasmine says, how safe is it to apply for a green card through marriage right now? It's not safe or unsafe. You have a good case, is your background good, and then you do it. So it's not the way you're thinking about it and the question is posed is just it's not valid. C user, good afternoon, Attorney Kostravi. Good to see you, C user. Thanks for coming on again. Alabama says, my question is, after that response and notice of intent to revoke, can I upload evidence if missing for I-130? You can. You should submit the evidence in a timely fashion, so you can still deny you. But not having reviewed the evidence, what you're doing, I can't come here and tell you what to do, what not to do. It could get me in trouble. So let's, do what you think is best. Melot says, I previously traveled to my home country while I was in the U.S. under asylum status. I've now filed for my I-485 for a marriage-based green card. Could that travel affect my green application? Historically not, but with this new administration, potentially it can. You just have to be able to explain it. That's that it varies and it depends on how strict the government wants to be. C user, what are your thoughts on Elon Musk? How was he not deported? What did he do? I don't know any background on Elon Musk and what his immigration status was, if there's violations or not, and how he got a green card or anything like that. So I don't have any thoughts about it. I don't have enough information. Ahmad says, thank you. Is being unemployed by itself affect my NIW F-45? No, not by itself, but the NIW, you're claiming that you're going to do big things once you get the green card. You want to be able to continue that. Plus, you may need to maintain status if you haven't filed. I mean, if you filed for I-45, you don't even maintain status, but you should have applied for a work permit and try to continue working in your field, just in case they come back later and want evidence or something like that. You should also have evidence that you were working up until the time of filing for I-45, and be sure not to work and violate your status after that. I owe taxes on year 2021, but filed every year after on time and paid my tax. Can I file 400? If you have tax issues you didn't file, that could be a problem for N400. Raj says, how to find out there's a red flag if in green card. Sit with an immigration attorney that can go through your whole history and documents as much as you have, and maybe do a FOIA request, Freedom of Information Act request for all your documents, and then go through it to see if there's something that was off. And you can't guarantee it'll catch it, but at least you'll get into it. TikTok says, is old evidence prior to getting conditional green card be sent as evidence again for I-751 or no need? It depends on the case and how much evidence you have or what that specific evidence is to show. Like, you might want to have a lease agreement, but the lease agreement was before you got your green card, so you include that's there. So it depends on what evidence is and how much more evidence you need and what your situation is. It's not like a generic thing I can say, like, do it this or do that. It's case by case to see what's beneficial for your case. Any tips for citizenship interview? Yeah, practice the questions. Make sure you know your N400 in and out. And, hopefully you don't have issues that you didn't notice or didn't know about. So you want to really prepare on the legal side. And you've got to talk with a lawyer. You go over her case to know that one. Marianne says, if I have a green card, can I travel? Generally, people with a green card and a foreign passport could travel. Whether you could travel, I can't advise because I don't know enough about you. Kayla says, is it true that it will take 8 months to get EAD for VAWA? Yeah, they're pretty backed up. I don't handle the VAWA case in my firm, so I don't like to talk about that because I don't have statistics in my head on it. But they're unreliable. The timelines are unreliable. Louis says, should I file for petition I-130 with the misdemeanor? The misdemeanor probably doesn't matter, but it depends on what the misdemeanor is exactly, who you're filing for, and like a lot of different things. But if you're the petitioner, particularly if you're filing you're the petitioner, you're a U.S. person, citizen, or green card holder, your status doesn't matter unless you were convicted of like child abuse in some form or fashion. Avi says, should you travel on AP if you had prior deportation but is removed? I wouldn't recommend traveling, but I don't know exactly what you mean, deportation but is removed. I haven't reviewed your paperwork, so I can't advise. Vani says, do you know about Canada? I got a refusal today. I don't handle Canadian immigration. Jaffrey says, I have a job offer. Can that help expedite my EAD C9 pending? You give it a shot. Contact USCIS to try to expedite, say I need it for a job. Bama says, marriage certificate translation should be attention by apostle or just need attention from translation office? I don't know what you mean should be attention. I don't know what that means. Apple user says, even though I'm in payment plan with IRS, I shouldn't file 400. If you have a payment plan, you need to have the written signed payment plan and what it is and show that you're going by it. And then the officer has discretion to deny your case based on that. But if you have a good payment plan, you're paying it, and there's no issues, normally they'll still approve it. But we got to look at your whole situation. Joffrey says, what is the best way to expedite call or Emma Chat? If you use Emma Chat, that's a quick way to do it. But I've never been able to use the online Emma Chat system, so I call it in. Bama says attested. So I don't know even what attested means, but you need to have a translation certificate. And so that's it. Whoever's translation is certified with a translation certificate. Harpreet says, hello to you too. Gurpreet says, I'm a green card holder. My wife came through student visa 2 months ago. Can I apply for I-130 for her? And generally, yes, but I want to consult with you first because if she just came, did she list she was married on her, on her student visa application? There might be a fear that she came with the intent to get married or file for a green card. So we got to see what the whole story is in her history. Avi says deportation order has been vacated. Should you still travel an AP? I need to review documents. I don't recommend it generally. Tom says, hello, sir. Any idea time frame for IR1 interview at Guatemala? No, I don't have any time frame. All right, so we're about to end the show reading the end. I'm immigration lawyer John Castrovi. I'm an immigration lawyer, and if you want to contact us or schedule a consultation, contact. That's jqqlaw.com/contact. Fill us in what your issue is, and we can take it from there. We'll respond. Zai says, can you tell me about SIJ update? We don't do SIJ cases, so I don't want to talk about that. Anita H2O says, Trump administration just paused the green card application. No, they're saying they paused it potentially for people that are green card holders or those who came on these special parole programs from Central America. We don't have confirmation of that, but that's the word on the street. Bam says, I responded to notice of intent to revoke February 9th. Should I wait to file a new case? I don't know, Bam. Please schedule a private consultation. Ahmad says, do you attend NIW interviews for a cost? Yes. Yeah. I mean, It depends on the case if I'm comfortable. So you have to have a paid consultation so I can review what's going on. If I'm comfortable enough coming and put my G28, that means going on record that represents you, then I'll do it. But it depends on the time, day, location, all that kind of stuff. ZH says, "Hi, I have a temporary green card or stamp I-551. I already buy tickets. Is it safe to travel? If you're, have issues, the background issues, and you have a stamped immigrant visa, and it's less than 1 year since it was stamped, it probably is okay. But I don't know anything about you, ZH, to be able to say it's safe or not." Harpreet asked about things being safe. Travel to different state, the I-485. Is it safe to travel in the U.S. They're going to a different state from an I-485 interview? Why is your I-485 interview in a different state? So your address issue might be wrong. So schedule a private consultation. Rashad says, "Sir, do you know which countries are on a red orange list?" It's all rumors right now, but it might be true. But the government has not actually issued anything. And last questions is KLM. For affiliate support, can I use just one tax transcript or more plus letter from an employer? You need to have your most recent tax transcript and the information for the previous two taxes before that as well. And the government may want a new one if you haven't filed 2024. They may RFU for it. How does an I-130 expedited approval take? A month or two. So it depends on the process. You call them up, and then it takes them a while to respond, and then they'll either deny it immediately or within a month. So it's all over the place. Just get it started. Mel says, "I filed my I-130 online and submit the I-485 a few weeks later. Since USCIS linked them, is this considered concurrent filing?" I don't concurrent filing. Typically, what we do is we just send it all at once. So it's probably concurrent filing, but I can't say for sure because I've never done something like that. It's like no point other than saving a couple of bucks on the online filing. I don't like to send things separate. Jolie XOXE says, "Time I see it, but we ran out of time for today's show. So I'll answer one more question and we'll take it from there." Papa says, "LPR, have I-551, hold 8 PhD after studying for 16 years. Want to travel during my safe?" I probably, but I don't know anything about you. That information doesn't really help. So schedule a private consultation to go over that. And then which tax year should be used for I-64? Can you still use 2023? Yeah, I mean, like April 15 is the deadline for filing taxes. So if it hasn't passed, you could do it, but you might get an RFE for your 2024 tax information. And Master says, "I responded to notice of intent to revoke 9th of February 2024. Should I wait for it or file a new I-130 case?" I can't advise you on what to do. You're my client. I haven't reviewed your background and see why you have a notice of intent to revoke. So if you have a big issue that got a notice of intent to revoke, that issue might still be a problem for the I-130. So I'm not sure it's good. Plus, the government has said in their federal regulations that you can't file the same form for the same kind of case. Now, in practice, I've done that before with that issue, but I just recently reread the regulations and saw that, so I can't recommend it if you have another I-130 pending. Okay, that's it, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us again. We'll be back again next Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern. I'm immigration lawyer John Khosravi. If you want to schedule a private consultation, go to our website, jqqlaw.com/contact. Fill in the box there, and we'll get back to you at least soon afterwards. God bless, be safe, and I'll see you all next week. Bye-bye.